Greetings and welcome to the 65th episode of Morrowind Showcases, and as always, I'm your host, Dark Elf Guy, and today we have another 13 mods for your viewing pleasure. This time around, these mods have a bit of a random theme to them, but you'll still find some scenic and beautiful estates, mysterious dungeons, and curious quests to go on in today's 65th episode. And as always, you'll find download links for all the mods we'll be taking a look at today down in the video description below, along with links to Abbott's mod list database where you can easily track and find any mods showcased on our channel here, and to links to common mod cleaners in case you need them. So with that out of the way, let's get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is Clannfear Replacer by Remiros, aka Flash313. And as you might expect, this is a graphical replacer mod for one of the more curious Daedra out there, the ever so dinosaur looking Clannfear, or Clannfear. I'm actually not really entirely sure which of those pronunciations is correct. I'm going to go with Clannfear because it sounds, slightly better. But anyway, as you should expect by now from the replacers that Remiros has been putting out over the last year or two, this one includes PBR, or physical based rendering support, which is what we're going to be looking at here at first. And again, as always, it should be noted that using PBR on anything other than, an ultra high-end machine will almost certainly cause some frame rate drops, but devil if it doesn't really look good. And you can just practically make out the individual scales on each of these Clannfears here, and I do especially like the detailing around the eyes. They look quite reptilian in nature. Of course, this replacer also comes with support for OpenMW with normal mapping. And there's also the non-PBR version for those who prefer to play the game at over 20 FPS, and that's actually what we're going to be looking at next year. This is the regular non-PBR replacer version for the Clannfear, and they still look a lot better than their vanilla Morrowind counterparts, and they also appear to be a bit more green than the PBR version, with slightly deeper colours, but maybe that's just me. Both versions look quite good and quite promising, and they're definitely worth checking out if you're looking to complete your Data Replacer collection or just want a slightly better looking game. Now for our house mod of the week this week, we have the Alchemist house, a non-instance player home by WulfShaman. And now this mod adds a new Halalu Salamander to the Ascane Isles region along Lake Amaya, not terribly far away from cities like Plesiad or Saran. And at first glance, it perhaps doesn't look like much, just another Halalu building along the waters, the Ascane Isles. But as with every single one of WulfShaman's mods so far, this home is far more unique than it first appears. And one of the first things you'll notice is that there does appear to be something of an outdoor ingredient garden along the upper entrance to this abode. And the second thing is that this entire home exists in the exterior world space. There's no interior cells here or loading screens. You just open the door and walk right on inside. You'll be greeted by a small foyer that looks up into the second floor. And right off the side of the entry hall, you'll find a small study with scrolls and writing instruments. And right past this little hole in the wall of a study, you'll find the master bedroom, which is beautifully detailed and atmospherically designed, with a very comfortable looking bed. And over on the other side of the entry hall, you'll find another bedroom, which is, again, quite cozy looking, including a small little reading nook in the corner. And I just have to say that WulfShaman is quickly becoming one of my favourite new house modders. Each of his house mods has been as creative as they are unique, with Talvani's Strider House being one of the more scenic house mods submitted for this year's modathon, and Saran Underwater Manor being one of the perhaps best house mods I've ever seen for stealth and thief-based characters. And of course, this house is clearly meant for more mage and alchemist-like characters. He clearly has a gift for beautiful and creative house designs, and I certainly hope to see many more mods from him in the future, but I have been gushing quite a bit, so getting back to the rest of the manor here, you'll find some more beds tucked away into the wall down here in the basement, where some companions can rest if you have any. There's also a nice little kitchen back here as well, with a fireplace and food preparation tables, and just beyond the kitchen, you'll find the dining room, including 2 large tables for seeing guests and company, and even a few weapons decorating the walls here. Again, there's just a number of really creative and unique elements in the design here, with ship gang planks being used to make shelving units and wall decorations. And there's also a couple of small storage rooms with a number of chests and sacks that you can use to store in loot. And going back to the kitchen, you'll find a small sort of closet-like space off to the side here. That's basically an alchemical lab, with potions and alchemical equipment ready to be used. And all in all, this is just a really beautiful and unique home to call your own, and definitely worth checking out. I'd highly recommend it. And this week's gameplay mod of the week is Free the Slaves by Carice. And this is a simple sort of role-playing and immersion mod that adds more dialogue options for unlocking the braces on slaves and releasing them. In vanilla Morrowind, you could only free slaves if you had the key for them, which was a bit of an issue in some cases where Bethesda apparently, just forgot to create a key for some of these slaves here. Well, now you can try using a lockpick by using your security skill, or try using a bit of magic with the Scroll of Alteration, or even just use a Scroll of Unlocking to free slaves, so it's no longer simply a binary choice of whether or not you have a particular key in order to free slaves. And now you can use a variety of tools and skills that are at your disposal, and this is just a really nice convenience and emerging mod to check out, especially if you plan on playing a crusader who wants to go around and free all the slaves in Morrowind. And next up we have our dungeon mod of the week, which this week is Westgash Retreat by Init Winterhoof. And now perhaps unsurprisingly, this mod adds a rather unassuming new dungeon to the Westgash region, which you can see here. And going inside you'll find a number of hand-built stairs and walkways leading you down into this cavern. And one of the things you're going to notice right away here is that this is a very vanilla-friendly dungeon, blending in well with the rest of the game world, and acting as a seamless addition to your dungeon delving experience, with nothing that really shouts modded content. So if that's something you like in your dungeon mods, you'll absolutely want to get this one. But anyway, moving on, this cavern is inhabited by both rats and bandits, and the author recommends you play this mod at around level 20+. Though truth be told, I'd say you're probably fine going in at around level 10. Either way, this isn't a massive dungeon by any means, fitting in well the standard dungeon size for most modern dungeons out there, but there are some really nicely detailed and atmospherically built areas, and on the whole this is one of the more, I would say, creative and unique looking vanilla style dungeon mods we released this year. There's several really nice areas that just nail the atmosphere, like this one right here with ambient blue lighting, and the central chamber with its branching walkways and hidden loot. And unfortunately we can't show off too much of this dungeon without spoiling everything, so we're going to do a rather short showcase here, showing off only a few areas. And I believe Danae has also done a small showcase of this mod on her channel as well. You'll find a link to that down in the video description below if you'd like to, see her take on the mod. And anyway, it's a nice dungeon mod and definitely worth checking out. Now for items of the week this week, we're taking a look at Imperial Studded Armor by Nazo X9. And this is sort of an extension of the existing Imperial Studded Armor set found in Vanilla Morrowind, which was really just the chest piece here, since for whatever reason Bethesda decided not to include any other pieces for this armor set. Well, now for this mod you'll find boots, greaves, braces, and pretty much everything else to make this a complete and lightweight armor set for you to use. And it is rather nice looking, I have to say, providing a good leather alternative to the native Netch leather armor set that's more in line with Western aesthetics. And now you'll find a few NPCs, mostly around Imperial forts and the like, wearing this armor already. But for the most part, you'll find it out in the wilderness, since it's been added to various leveled lists. And yes, that does mean that you'll need to merge your leveled lists in order to use this mod. And all in all, it's a rather lore-friendly completion of an existing armor set, and definitely well worth checking out. This week's quest mod of the week is Salt Gems of Ben Samsi by Melkor Dog. And now this one starts out when you visit the Aldrun Mages Guild, and ask the Argonian there about research opportunities. He'll mention a curious project being worked on by a friend of his, who just so happens to need a few adventures to help him out. And if you agree to help, he'll finish you with a note from his friend, detailing a bit about his experiments, which involve a 6-house base and the ever-present ash slaves found to be lingering in such places. And eventually he'll be teleported to the 6-house cave of Ben Samsi, and yes, I know that's probably not how you pronounce it, located out in the northern ashlands of Ardenfell. And within, you'll find an area hidden off from the rest of the cavern complex, where a curious scholar and researcher has taken up residence, studying ash slaves. You'll find his living quarters here, as well as a pen of ash slaves he's captured for study down below. And as it turns out, this fellow's particular area of study is out of magical stones and the act of imbuing them with power. So you'll notice a lot of soul gems decorating his table here. And should you ask him about it, he'll be happy to go into detail about his research, which involves using the ash slaves below to grow and harvest crystals, and of course he has a couple of quests for you to do in order for him to expand his little experiment. This is by no means an overly long quest mod, so we're just going to be showing off, some of the first parts of the quest here. But I did just want to take a moment and take a look at some of the new ash slave creatures added by this mod here, which all show varying rates of crystallization thanks to the experiments being conducted on them. And after doing the quest, you may well find a way to create soul gems from ash salts. And either way, this is certainly a very interesting set of quests to go on, and well worth your time to play for yourself. Next up we have our Landmass Mod week, which this week is A Fine Home by Kitty Jones. And now, as you might expect from the name here, this is actually a house mod, and also sort of a town mod that just happens also having landmass included. Now, we've been doing our Morrowind Modding Showcases series for over 3 years now, covering over 90 landmass mods, and as you might suspect by now, we're running a tad low on landmasses to showcase, so you can't really afford to be too picky. It may be a house mod, but there's still a new island off the shores of the Big Coast region, and that's good enough for me. And anyway, this island is located pretty close to the mouth of the Yodai River, and it's home to a number of NPC shack dwellings, as well as a central sort of mixed Imperial and Telvanni manor that acts as a player home for you to use, including a lovely little courtyard and some scenic landscape additions. And just from the exterior here, the island is, really rather beautiful looking, with a unique and creative design that makes for a fairly nice place to call home. And in addition, it's automatically compatible with Tower built, being well within the inner sea between the island of Vardenfell and the Tower built mainland. Though having said that, it will still conflict with Odai Castle, which places a landmass in a very similar location here. And now you also find a scenic little balcony here at the top of the Telvanni Tower, providing some excellent views of the surrounding bit of coast region. And if you had Tower built installed, you'd even be able to see across the mainland from here. And checking out some of the shacks here first, you'll mostly find a variety of merchants living in the small village near the tower, each providing different services, like spells and spell making, or buying and selling weapons and armor, or other services that might prove to be convenient, though this mod is a bit cheaty in this respect, since some of the merchants here are quite rich. And just heading into the main manor house here, you'll find that most of the lower levels of this abode are imperial in design, while the upper floors are more Telvanni in appearance. And this first entry hall here includes a bit of a garden in the center, with a small kitchen here in the back. And you'll notice that much of the manor here comes with NPC staff to keep you company. And upstairs you'll find a nicely decorated and finished dining room, with a table already set for a feast, and plenty of seats for company. And there's also a lounge up here as well, with pillows and musical instruments to entertain guests. And you'll even notice a few potted plants in here to add a bit of life as well. And now, up on the upper levels, you'll find the master bedroom, including a fairly sizable bed for yourself, although the room is perhaps somewhat overgrown with plant life. And there's also, curiously, a few skeletal corpses hanging down from the ceiling. And the master bedroom also comes with 2 dancing NPCs in case you get a bit lonely up here all by yourself. And moving over to the Telvanni side of the house here, you'll find a number of rooms seemingly dedicated to would-be wizards, such as a library of shelves upon shelves of books, and a study that also happens to include an alchemical ingredient carton, ripe for the picking to be used in your alchemical brews. And the entire home here is rather nicely decorated with some cozy finishings. And up at the very top of the Telvanni Tower here, you'll find a rather, scenic Telvanni Wizard's Lab, with all the sort of magical tools and decorations that you might expect from that great house, such as alchemical equipment and a study up on the top floor here, all rather nicely finished, including a number of potted plants and vines and the like. And in addition to the manor house, there's also a basement and a series of caverns underneath the island, including a small chamber full of crystals directly beneath the manor, with waterfalls and a small pool in which you can take a swim, or a bath if you so desire. There's also an escape tunnel down here, and a storage area with crates, barrels, and chests for you to store your loot in, if you so desire. And one last thing to show off here, there's something of a hidden necromancer's den down here as well, with some storage and an altar for reanimating the dead, which if you're playing a more sinister type of character, you may well enjoy the use of. For NPC Mod of the Week this week, we have Beasts of Vardenfell by Crankgorilla, and much like other major creature compilation packages, Beasts of Vardenfell aims to add more variety to the level content of Morrowind's tombs, ruins, caverns, and wilderness by introducing about 87 new creatures to the game's old list, making it similar to other mods like Pirate Lord's Creatures 11. And yes, this does mean you'll want to merge leveled lists when using this mod, especially if you have a lot of other creature mods installed already. And anyway, this mod just makes it possible for you to run into a variety of new and potentially unique creatures when exploring a variety of environments, like say new types of undead and ancestral tombs, such as zombies, mummies, living dead, and other creatures that you might expect to find when exploring the darkened resting places of the native Dunmer. And now obviously a lot of the creatures in this package are from various modders' resources and other creature mods that Crankgorilla has sort of gathered together, such as some of Archimaestra and Terry's mods, some of Melkor's creatures, and so on and so forth. So don't be too surprised to see monsters that you've already seen before in other mods, and in some ways this is kind of a compilation mod, but it can also be used in conjunction with all the other mods it borrows resources from. But anyway, with Beasts of Vardenfell you'll find a ton of new creatures in practically every type of environment, whether it be the Gracelands with new types of Nixhounds and Clannfears, or the Ashlands with several new varieties of cliff races, or Daedric Shrines with a variety of new foes, patrolling the grounds of these old ruins. There's just a lot here, and if you're wanting even more creature variety, Beasts of Vardenfell is a nice package to use by itself, or with a bunch of other creature mods in order to ensure that you never run out of new encounters to face. So if that's something you want, you might want to give this mod a try. This week's new Meshes and Textures mod of the week is Mushroom Tree Replacer by Peterbit. And now right away, I do need to apologise for the inevitable lag and framerate drops in this video. This mod includes physical-based rendering support, which, as I've said countless times, is pretty intensive on most machines. But since Peterbit has included PBR materials for his Mushroom Tree Replacer, I wanted to take a look at that first. And essentially what this mod does is completely replace the giant mushroom trees of Morrowind with completely new models and textures. And I really have to hand it to Peter Bit, these are absolutely fantastic looking. These mushroom trees look almost handcrafted, with gnarly trunks and realistic mushroom caps, not to mention bits of moss and vines hanging down from them. Peter Bit has shown extraordinary skill with his replaces in the past, including his Scamp, Nick Sound, and Soul Gem replaces, and really this might be his best one yet. The detail here is just amazing. You'd almost be forgiven for thinking these models came from a completely different game. And now in Vanilla Morrowind, there's just 3 different types of mushroom trees. So as you might expect, this replacer covers just those 3 models here, but it really does, vastly improve the landscape of Morrowind. And this does make me a bit curious about what Peter Bit could do with a more wide-ranging tree replacer for the rest of the trees of Morrowind. Of course, again, PBR is a bit framerate intensive. I think my FPS here is about 16 when recording, and 26 when not recording, so you need a pretty high-end machine to get the most out of these replacers, much like the Clannfear replacer we looked at earlier. But of course, you can use this replacer without PBR, and have a much more stable frame rate. And we're going to take a look at the non-PBR version here, which is still without question extremely beautiful and scenic looking. Definitely a vast improvement over the vanilla models, and greatly enhancing the landscape of regions like the Azkaban Isles and the Azura's Coast. And I just love how some of these vines here seem to wrap around the trunks of these mushroom trees. It's a really cool sort of fantasy effect, and I just have to say that I love everything about this replacer. Without question, I'd recommend checking it out for yourself. And next up, we have our Mars Resource Mod of the Week, and this time around we have Carts and Wagons Resource by Neoptolemus. And this mod quite naturally adds a few new carts and wagons to the game to be used as a resource in your own mods. And I believe there's 3 types of wagons and carts included here specifically, each with a vanilla style and lore-friendly appearance that blends in fairly well with the rest of the game. And indeed, I believe each of these models uses vanilla game textures, so there's nothing too outlandish here. And in addition to all that, this resource also includes a demo file which adds these wagons and carts to various towns, villages, and settlements of Morrowind, which can be used as a bit of a detail and immersion mod if you want. But anyway, this is a rather useful resource, since in the vanilla game there's only one type of cart or wagon, and that's the Gwar cart, which is a bit strange, since any civilization that has the massive constructions found in Morrowind would need to have some way of transporting materials, and luckily this resource manages to fill in that gap with models that blend in really quite well, and I think some of these resources can actually already be found in Morrowind Rebirth, but of course are perfectly suited to a number of different types of mods, whether town or city expansion mods, or even a house mod as a little extra exterior detailing. They're really a quite useful resource to check out. For our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Anwin Manor by Nira, and now this is sort of a quest, house, and dungeon mod all in one, and it starts out in Ebonheart when you meet this fellow here, who asks you to clear out his old manor of bandits that have somehow taken over, and this will lead you to a Velothi-style manor located underneath Ebonheart, full of hostile and fairly strong bandits to face. A level about 20 or so is recommended for playing this mod. And anyways, you'll follow these spiral staircases down into the heart of the manor itself, which includes a cozy looking entry hall, as well as a library and study off in a side room here. And of course you'll be facing bandits in nearly every single room of this abode that you'll have to kill before you can even think about moving in here. But outside of the constant sword swinging and hall by hall fighting, you'll find a lot of the sort of typical rooms you might expect to find in a manor such as this, like a master bedroom towards the back here, or a rather lovely set of ingredient gardens including statues, waterfalls, and just a rather atmospheric collection of flowers and other plants so you can harvest, for alchemical brews and the like. There's even a training room, where you'll find a variety of these button-like things that you can use to summon various creatures to fight, such as golden saints, Dremora, rats, and other bits of wildlife from around Vardenfell. There's also a small display hall in here, full of display pedestals and glass display cases that you can use to show off your loot, though there's already a few rather overpowerful items in here, and again this mod might be considered just a bit cheaty. And there's also another training room in here, only this time with animated practice dummies that you can, just wail on a bit. And all in all, this is a rather nice and feature-heavy house mod that you have to earn, and it's definitely worth checking out if you're on the market for something like that. This week's Blast from the Past mod of the week is Library by Roger, and now this mod adds an underground library beneath the Gorak Manor in Caldera that contains a copy of nearly all the books from Morrowind, so you can easily track down and read certain books that you might have difficulty finding otherwise. and this does kind of make this a cheat mod, since obviously skill books are a bit on the powerful side, and some might argue that part of the fun in playing Morrowind is trying to track down all the books by yourself out in the game world. That said, I've always quite liked this mod, just from a design perspective. The library here is quite atmospheric and cozy, and it is nice to just relax down here with a book in hand. And of course, the mod doesn't include any quest-related books, so you can't use it to bypass certain quests that require you to track down various bits of literature. And of course, there's also some extra space in here where you can add books from mods like Terry built, just to sort of add on to the library's collection. And now, in addition to the library here, you also find a set of personal quarters down here that you can use, with empty tables, bookshelves, and other areas where you can display items, as well as crates and barrels for you to store your extra stuff in. And truth be told, this is probably my favourite part of this mod. The personal quarters here descend into a set of caverns with imperial walkways and pillars, and the design here is just beautiful and absolutely creative in appearance. You'll find a bed in here with a cozy fireplace for you to use, a sort of makeshift kitchen, a kind of workshop area, and there's even a few pools of water down here, just kind of part of the natural caverns, with lots of kelp and vines and things of that nature. And really, this place is just incredibly atmospheric. I personally have a lot of fond memories of playing this mod back in the day, and I think I've used it as a house mod on more than one occasion. There's just a wonderful sort of makeshift nature about it. And just sort of, moving on here, these caverns do go back a little ways, where you'll find, oddly enough, a rather makeshift dining area, with a custom table built out of planks and crates, sitting on top of a docking platform here, just in the midst of these beautifully detailed caverns. And while this could be construed as a cheat mod due to the sheer number of books it contains, it's very much a house mod, and I know, we've covered a lot of house mods in today's episode, but I do really recommend this one. It's just incredibly unique and cozy, and unlike really anything else I've seen, with a beautiful custom design. And if you're looking for a new player home, or just want an easier way to, read all the books in game, you should really check this one out. Now, finally, we have our bonus mod of the week, which this week is Flowing Red Mountain by Eldermaster28. And basically what this mod does is add flowing lava fields going all the way down Red Mountain, which is something you should really expect from an active volcano like this. And essentially, this is just sort of a landscape detailing mod that's designed specifically for the vanilla version of Red Mountain. I'm not sure how well it'll, work with mods like Mountainous Red Mountain though. It'll probably conflict. But anyway, there's now several different streams of lava going down the sides of Red Mountain here, as well as new lava pools added to the landscape here and there from previous lava flows, making for a more, sort of menacing and dangerous looking volcanic landscape. And if you just want a bit more lava with your Red Mountain, you might want to consider giving this mod a try. And that pretty much wraps up today's episode of Modern Mining Showcases. As always, you'll find down the links down in the video description below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time!